More than a decade ago, when I was working on my first sci-fi story, I'd asked my intuition this: what's the one thing that could really help me? It was an open-ended question. I was hoping to find a way to make better progress with the manuscript. Truth be told, I was probably looking for a quick fix to my lack of progress. But quick fixes are a trap. It reinforces the idea that we can get to some top of the mountain destination, and suddenly all will be well. This is wrong. We need to be present for every step, and there is no top of the mountain. But the question wasn't in vain. Shortly after my initial inquiry, I came across Cal Newport's deep work. The idea of setting aside a few hours daily to focus on a cognitively demanding task was not new to me. I knew it was effective. I'd used this approach during times of heavy procrastination, and I'd recommended it to students over the years. If a project feels daunting, it's easier to work on it for an hour or two rather than set a goal of working on it until completion. Just starting builds momentum. Deep work reminded me of just how effective consistent and uninterrupted focused work can be. My own preferred way to do deep work is to make sure I write 2 to 4 hours daily. I've done lots of different things that can be classified as deep work. Coding, math, science writing, report writing, and yes, fiction writing. The most challenging of these is fiction writing. I have some theories about why this is so. Fiction writing requires many different things to be of a high quality: character, narrative voice, tension, description, setting, plot, prose. The list goes on. You have to say things in a way that isn't old and worn out. By the way, this is also why AI writing doesn't tend to surprise or delight. Well, not often in any case. AI writing is grammatically correct, yes, but it lacks something deeper. Most of it seems too calculated and one-dimensional. This is true for non-fiction writing, but especially for AI fiction. To me, good fiction always has a magic factor that transports you to another world, a world that you would like to explore. I've never encountered that in any AI fiction that I've read. Take Anathem by Neil Stephenson, for instance. This is one of my favorite fiction books of all time. You can say that it's a first contact novel from a perspective of another planet, much like Earth. But you can also say that it's a kind of philosophical science fiction that explores the impact of ideas, culture, politics, and technologies on society. Or you might classify it as a sci-fi that explores parallel realities and different avenues of evolution. At first you might feel that it sounds like gobbledygook, but if you can persist through a learning curve of strange jargon, the novel transports you to a world where you would like to be. A world where you would like to know what happens next. No AI engine could write something like Anathem. No AI engine could have written Seven Eves or Remedy or Snow Crash, but Neil Stephenson could. He was uniquely suited to write those stories because of his background in physics and interest in space and mathematics and such. When I say that AI fiction isn't great, someone will always vehemently disagree. Some argue that AI writing will only get better and eventually surpass human fiction. People that don't read can't tell much of a difference anyway. Others want to argue that in the future there will be no need for human work or creativity. Everything will be done by machines. Maybe we'll all end up on couches, continuously being entertained by screens while feasting on a diet of junk food and sugary drinks. This is cynicism masquerading as cleverness. It serves to nudge us further in a direction of zombieing, drone-like behavior. Everything is done, nothing left to discover, nothing left to do except exist in a numbed-out state of mild entertainment. If we feel we have nothing to contribute, why read more? Why create? Why learn and contribute? No one knows how things will play out in the future, but if you tell people that they have nothing meaningful to contribute, it serves to suffocate optimism. It serves to smother humanity's natural curiosity and creativity. We should ask ourselves, why are we endlessly confronted with these cynical views, and why we choose to believe them? Okay, enough about that. I'm not entirely against using these technologies. I do use AI engines to do editing. I found it extremely helpful to spot small mistakes. Small mistakes creep in all the time. Ask any writer. You might know what the difference is between it's and its, but sometimes you read over the mistake. That said, I don't always implement suggested changes from AI engines when it comes to sentence construction or words. This is because I value the meaning of what I'm trying to convey to a higher degree than, well, almost anything else. For instance, I don't necessarily care if a word doesn't fit with the tone of the piece, as long as that word conveys what I'm trying to say accurately. Sometimes I do implement suggested changes and ask for a re-edit. In some cases, the AI engine would change the word or sentence back to the original, overriding its own initial suggestion. So there's a lack of consistency at times. So it's important to remember this. AI engines can't think. Here's another example. I once asked ChatGPT to give me a list of the best Ursula Le Guin novels. The results mentioned The Dispossessed twice. I pointed this out in the second prompt, and ChatGPT then gave me an additional title, The Dispossessed, again. Okay, this was a while back and I assume things have improved, but still, it's valuable to remember that there isn't a thinking mind behind the answers. I don't want to be overly critical about the technology because I do think it's really helpful as a tool. It's certainly great at picking up obvious mistakes, like when I inadvertently write form instead of from, or when I use amount instead of number. But as a tool, we still have to use our human judgment. We should not mindlessly rely on it. It's better to cultivate reading and writing as a skill. Learning to read and write well takes time, months and years. But here's the encouraging thing. You only have to devote a few hours every day to cultivate the skill. There's only so much deep work that you can do per day. Fiction writing in particular is extremely cognitively demanding. I would argue that it's especially the case for intricate and long epic fantasies and expansive sci-fi novels. And because fiction writing is so challenging, you only have to do a few hours per day. The tricky thing is staying consistent. I've heard great writers, both Neil Stephenson and Ursula Le Guin among others, say that writing sessions that exceed 4 hours can be counterproductive because focus wanes at that point. So 2 to 4 hours of fiction writing per day is plenty. Brandon Sanderson writes 8 hours per day, but those hours are broken into 2 sessions of 4 hours each. Sanderson writes monster novels, and not everyone is going to feel the need to write a 10-book epic fantasy where each individual book is more than 1,000 pages long. New writers should set modest goals. Make your first novel 50,000 words, or maybe start with a short story. Here are the most important things to remember. Write daily for a few hours each day. Stay consistent no matter what. Don't worry about what AI engines can and can't do. No one can write the novels that you want to write. You have a unique perspective. Bring that to the work. Keep improving, keep learning, and above all, keep writing.